Stand by to initiate release sequencer. On my mark. 5.
We're on express elevator to hell. Going down.
2. 1. Mark.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark, aka Derringer, and today is Sunday, March 18th, and you are listening to episode 148 of the Instant Action Podcast, your weekly source for Planetside 2 news and information. As always, I'm brought to you by great listeners like you via the Support the Show tab on instantactionpodcast.com. Speaking of that Support the Show tab, a big thank you again to everybody who's been using my Amazon link. I've seen a huge influx in people purchasing things there. I've seen GTX 1080s. I've seen full computer systems being purchased there, along with miscellaneous other odds and ends. And as you know, if you're using it already, it doesn't cost you anything extra to use my link. It just kind of shuffles over a little taste of whatever you're purchasing from Amazon directly over to me, and it directly helps support the show. As most people are aware, my server costs come due in April. I started podcasting again in May, so April is when I need to pay all those server costs, and we're halfway through March now, which means about a month from now I'm going to have to pay all those server costs, and I think I'm in an extremely good place right now to cover all those without having any out-of-pocket coming from me, and that's a big thank you from me to you guys for supporting me in small ways such as this. In-game, as we change subjects, I've been playing an awful lot of Planetside 2 lately. Anybody who is on Twitch knows that I have been streaming just about every night Planetside 2 gameplay on Twitch. I was streaming last night. I didn't do it Friday. Why didn't I do it Friday? Oh, I went out to my parents' house on Friday, and I didn't get back until really late. But I did stream some on Thursday before I went to soccer. I streamed some on Wednesday. I streamed some on Tuesday. And I streamed some on Monday. Like I said, I've been doing an awful lot of streaming on my Twitch channel, and that's twitch.tv/TheDerringer. That's where I do pretty much everything. So feel free to pop over there, follow me there. I know a lot of people have followed me on that, and I really appreciate that. I'm getting very close to being able to become a Twitch affiliate. For the Twitch affiliate, you've just got to stream for 8 hours, stream for 3 days, or 3 or 7, I can't remember. I think it was 7 days, actually. I have to have 50 followers. I had that from before. And the last goal that I'm trying to break is to have 3 viewers in channel during stream, and it's an average of 3 viewers over the past 30 days. Most nights I get a couple viewers. Some great nights I get 7+ viewers, which in the grand scheme of things isn't a lot, but for me just starting out, I'm super appreciative. And I've got some little things going on in the channel for anybody who's watching. The biggest one that most people are having the most fun with is the ability to change the colors of the lights in the room that I'm playing in and streaming from. I've got them set up with, the blue, the red, the green, the yellow, the orange. You can just type ! And then whatever color you want. I've also set up ones for the different servers. So I've got an emerald. So ! Emerald changes them green. ! Miller changes them red, because I feel that Miller's mostly the Russian server. The Cobalt one, ! Cobalt changes it blue, et cetera, et cetera. So again, just a little perk. If you follow my channel, you're able to change the colors when I'm streaming. And it does scare me every time that it happens. One of my longtime listeners, players, friends, Ripple, is always in the channel constantly changing the colors on me, and it startles me every time that it happens. But enough about me. What's actually in store for this week's show? Well, first I have a St. Patrick's Day game update to talk about, and this is on both the PC and PS4 side, followed by a new PTS update as well, another small one with some new additions added. After that, I want to move on to revisit an old poll that people talked about a number of years ago and has been brought back to life to get a second set of answers to it. And then finally, I want to finish by talking about gambling and RNG in Planetside 2. So strap in as we hot drop into another episode of the Instant Action Podcast. First up, like I said, is the March 12th PC game update and the March 13th PS4 game update. And everybody's titling this one the St. Patrick's Day update or whatnot, because the biggest thing that came in this one is St. Patrick's Day is now upon us. So to celebrate that, from March 14th through March 18th, so it actually ends today during this recording, there is double XP going on for all players in Planetside 2. In addition to that, they've added some seasonal items to the marketplace for the duration of the event. So that means today, unfortunately, if you're listening to this show on Monday on the 19th, all these things are going to be gone, so you missed out on getting them. But in the depot, you can find clover camo, a shamrock decal, a leprechaun decal. They've added the Ant Lucky Tire Trails. Unfortunately, that's PC only because the PS4 folks don't have an Ant. They also added the Sunder Lucky Tire Trails. They added the NS Jackpot Decimator. And these all go from, the Clover Camo is $2.99. The Shamrock and the Leprechaun decals are $49 each. The Ant Trails are $3.99. The Sunder Trails are $3.99, and those trails just do little clovers come out the back of them. It's kind of nifty. The big one is the NS Jackpot Decimator, because this one costs $14.99 Daybreak cash. And the reason that this is the big one is because this is actually the fourth Exceptional 2 directive weapon that's come into the game. And I'll talk about that a little bit further down in this week's post. And finally, they do have a bundle where you can get all of these things for $1,999 Daybreak cash, or just under $2,000 Daybreak cash, or $20 basically. The one difference over on PS4 side, of course, is, like I said before, you can't get the Ant tire trail. So on PS4 side, it's actually only $1,799 Daybreak cash. So obviously they took out an additional $399 basically on that one to make it a little bit cheaper. The good news is, though, if you take your calculator out and add all those things up, if you want everything in there, it makes sense just to buy the entire bundle. Because on PC side, you're going to spend $2,694 Daybreak cash to get everything, whereas you can spend $1,999 and get it all. And on PS4 side, purchasing everything separately, you'd spend $2,295 Daybreak cash and only have to spend $1,799. So certainly a savings to buy it all in a bundle. I can say that I did purchase the entire bundle, though. Wanted to get that Decimator. The tire trails are certainly perfect as well. I did have the Clover camo on one of my characters. I don't remember if I must have bought it with certs at some point because it wasn't unlocked across every faction. So it's too bad because I could have spent a little bit less and gotten more out of it by not having to purchase that. But, certainly whatever. But again, St. Patrick's Day is kind of ending today, or the St. Patrick's Day event is ending today as I'm recording this. So hopefully you had a chance to get in game and pick this up before it ended. Next up, there were some UI changes to the game itself, and now you can actually filter weapons by the type in the loadout screen. There's some request filters added to the interface setting menu. You can also now prevent outfit invites, squad invite, whispers, and friend requests through these toggles. And in addition, you can actually enter in / commands to do this also. So you can do like / ignore requests, refuse, and that will refuse all incoming friend, squad, or outfit requests. You can do the same thing with friend. You can do specifically, friend, squad, outfit, and then refuse or accept. And you can also do whispers or tells as well to refuse and accept incoming whispers and tells. So the person I see being able to use this the most is actually Wrel. And the reason I say that is because every time I see him live stream, he gets a whole bunch of tells. He gets a whole bunch of squad invite requests and all kinds of things like that. So I imagine he's probably gone in and turned all those to ignore across all the characters that he plays with. And I'm sure there's other people out there that would love to do this as well, especially somebody who just wants to be left alone and play all by themselves. But for the most part, I have a feeling that not many people are actually going to use these. Now, it is worth noting that that stuff's the same across both PC and PS4. I actually logged into my PS4 account to test those /ignore commands, and they definitely are there. But PS4 already had weapons filtered by the type of weapon, so that really doesn't affect them as much as it affects the PC side. Moving on, though, let's talk about the Exceptional 2 directive. And there had been a lot of speculation in the past that the NS357IA, the Derringer pistol, and the NS Showdown were just unannounced Exceptional 2 weapons. And people expected that to just be corrected. And this is the proof that they are not considered Exceptional 2 weapons. And I had always contended that because Wrel had stated the Exceptional 2 directive was going to be for new weapons that were purchasable, that the Derringer and the Showdown really didn't fit into that particular niche to be Exceptional 2 weapons. But now that we do have the Jackpot Decimator, that gives us a fourth weapon in the Exceptional 2 directive tree and means that we can now complete the Exceptional 2 directive tree. And they've also revealed some of the mystery rewards as well for it. Now, if you finish 2 of the Exceptional 2, the second portion of it, you get a implant pack. If you now complete the third, this is the expert tier, you earn something called the CERT Explosion Vehicle Horn. And basically when you honk your horn, it has a visual certs exploding out of the front of the vehicle. It's kind of interesting. But the big one that everybody's talking about now is the master tier reward. This is if you were to Araxium 4 of the exceptional weapons. And right now this means that you need to Araxium the platinum variant of a heavy weapon. I have done the platinum lasher, so I'm 1/4 of the way there on my Vanu character. But in addition to that, you need to Araxium the platinum archer, the Jojo, the XOXO that we just got on Valentine's Day. The Tonto P, platinum variant of the Tonto, is listed in here as well. And again, now the new Jackpot Decimator. You would need to Araxium all 4 of those. And as someone pointed out, you basically have to spend $45 on them and get 1,160 kills on all of them, which with the Jojo specifically, that one's a little tough for a lot of people, but the other ones shouldn't be that bad. I expect to see a lot more of the CERT Explosion Vehicle Horns, because that one's only about 160 kills on 3 weapons in order to unlock that one. Like I said, I've already done the Platinum Lasher, and it doesn't seem that difficult for me to finish off the Tonto and also finish off the Jackpot at this point. So I will be pushing to get the CERT Explosion Vehicle Horn as soon as I can. But like I said, the good news is we now actually know what the ultimate Exceptional 2 stuff is. And I didn't even say what the Master Tier reward was, and that's a single-use gold weapon camo. So a lot of people have been asking for a gold weapon camo, like Affleck with his 100,000 anchor kills. There's also, you've got Vengeance D with 100,000 kills on the Carve. And the reason everybody asked for this is because at one point they released a gold SVA-88 after a player got 100,000 kills with that, and 100,000 was such a large number that they made a gold SVA-88. If you notice, you can actually buy it in the depot, but there are no other gold weapons like that. There's no gold anchor, there's no gold carve, there's no gold MSWR, things like that, guns that people have finished. So this does give the devs a way to add a single-use gold weapon camo to the game. And again, it's one use, so you need to be careful when you place it on a particular weapon and then not change it again. Hopefully there'll be some sort of lock mechanism so you don't accidentally take it off of that particular weapon. But again, this is the sucky part is you've got these players that already have 100,000 kills with a weapon, and now they need to grind out another 4,500 kills with 4 other weapons just to get a single-use gold weapon camo within the game itself. Now, a lot of people will argue that NC already have an easy way. They've got yellow camos, shiny gold camos already, and they can kind of do this without getting a one-use camo, so it's kind of not fair for TR and VS, but I'm hoping we might see some change to how this works in the future. I don't think there's anybody out there that is close to the full finishing off this master tier reward, because I'd love to see them apply it to vehicle weapons as well, and things like that. And I think they're missing out on not allowing vehicle weapons to be covered in gold camo as well. But at least we have it unlocked and we know exactly what it is at this particular point. Enough on that. Moving along. Changes to the metagame were made as well. First off, unstable warp gates, as I talked about on last week's show. They were making changes so it's no longer the outer ring of a continent that's unstable. Now they have lanes leading towards the center of each continent, which I love. Like I said, it forces some 3-way fights right in the middle of every map. It looks a little janky because it kind of has to go a weird lattice type way depending on what continent it is, but it is what it is. Also, the unstable continents now have a 120 player stabilization threshold, and this is up from the original 96 players. So it will take a little bit longer for the warp gate to actually stabilize. Moving on to Esamir, they did add a new lattice link between Eli Tower and Old Shore Checkpoint. And the other metagame thing they added is regarding the alerts. They added a brand new camo to the game, and it's finally Nick Silva's new camo, is I guess what we're going to call it. It's called the Paradise camo, and it's basically a camo pattern of the shirt that Nick likes to wear during their Planetside 2 live streams. And if you've ever seen it, it's got birds on it, it's got flowers on it, it's your classic Hawaiian shirt, and he wears it on, like I said, on their live streams. So to earn this Paradise camo, it is a rare reward for alert wins on the continent of Hassan, and the only requirement is that you participate in 90% of the alert on whatever faction wins it. So I think this is actually going to push a lot more people to play on Hassan, because this is the only way that you can actually get this camo. Unlike the Showdown or the Derringer, you have to own either an underboss or the Black Hand in order to get a small percentage to earn it. Again, you don't have to have anything. The only thing you need to do is actually be on the continent for 90% of the alert. It's cool. I'm going to be actually playing alerts on Hassan just to try and win this. Next, we have some infantry adjustments. First up, the Promise got some vertical min and max recoil adjustments, and horizontal recoil reductions was changed as well. And the changes were to tame some of the uncontrollability of the weapon, and this is by settling the horizontal recoil into a tighter firing pattern in half the time. It also reduces some of the potential variance in first shot recoil. The Maw also got some changes. They removed the recoil growth characteristics. They also reduced its vertical recoil. They also reduced its recoil angle minimums, or increased those. And they also reduced the recoil horizontal max. And these recoil adjustments were designed to put it more in line with what the anchor is in terms of controllability, while still retaining some faction distinction. Now, I have not played with the Promise since they put these changes into the game, but I did play a lot with the Maw last night, as a matter of fact, and I really noticed the difference between its launch version and this new version that it came out with. I found that I was hitting shots a lot easier. It was a lot easier to tame in the recoil, and having Araxiumed an anchor, I know how to use the anchor, and I was used to the anchor. I felt used to the Maw as well regarding these changes. So a big thumbs up from me to Daybreak Games for making the changes to the Maw, because it definitely feels a lot more in line with the anchor, and I will use the Maw a lot more than I had planned to originally. Next up, tank mines. Tank mines should now once again detonate for max units. I guess there was an issue with those. And they will now only detonate on max units after their 4-second arming time. So, like I said, you got to remember on tank mines that they do take 4 seconds to arm before they will detonate. But again, they will be working for max units again. Other than that, there were a bunch of different little updates and bug fixes. Some of them came to both the PS4 and the PC side of the game. Nothing really huge that I could see. I guess you can see vehicle capture points from further distances than you used to be able to. Other than that, really minimum, minor changes. I mean, they did add a bunch of new outfit decals to the game that were all sitting in Player Studio, because I know there were a lot of complaints about that recently, that outfit decals were just kind of sitting in limbo. So again, a bunch of new outfit decals. So if you're a outfit that's looking for a new decal, maybe you can find one of the existing ones that are in there. But again, this is the St. Patrick's Day update covered from front to back. And with that, let's move on to our next update with the PTS. And like I said, this dropped on March 16th, so just a couple days ago. It's all new construction blueprints, and these were things that were teased during one of Wrel's most recent live streams. The first is called the Pain Spire, and what this does is it damages enemy infantry and maxes within 15 meters of the Pain Spire. They've also added a routing spire, and what this does is it allows the user to equip a deployable spawn point router, and that can be pulled from the spire when charged. Now, the router was something that was in the original Planetside, and the router was a vehicle that you drove to a particular area, dropped it off, you grabbed a spawn point from it, and you ran somewhere else and you placed it, and then people could run into the vehicle and pop out to wherever the spawn point was. It was used primarily as a quick way for infantry to get inside of a base. So the router would be set up outside the base. Someone would grab the portal, they'd run inside the base, drop off the portal, and you'd be able to funnel people in without having to go over walls or through doorways or anything like that outside. Clearly, the Planetside 2 version is nothing like that, but it is basically a deployable spawn point that's coming into the game. Very different from having to spawn on a Sunderer, and something I'm looking forward to. The third construction blueprint that was added is called the Flail. The Flail was also in the original Planetside, but what the Flail in Planetside 2 does is it fires a volley of 4 mortar shells in quick succession, and they do moderate damage to all in its range of explosion. This does require an AI module as well as a manually fired targeting dart in order to use. Now again, the original Flail in Planetside 1, or the original Planetside, it was basically a mortar, and it did, giant arcing pieces of plasma or whatever would come out of the sky and hit a point that someone had tagged on the ground. It was very effective at tagging infantry or armor or things like that, and you'd do some get some mortar shells in onto them, and it was good for softening up targets. It was pretty tough, though, for the person to do the targeting dart for it to happen, but I see the flail as kind of a different option towards the orbital strike itself. And I'm happy to see things like new things coming to construction like this. Again, I'm not a big construction user, but if they add things like this which affect gameplay outside of construction, I don't have a problem with it. Especially the routing spire seems like a good one. Imagine if you can get that one real close to a point and get a lot of people using it. Can certainly be interesting and push people to use construction. And I would really like to see how this flail works to kind of fight off some of the zergs that are happening within the game itself. They do have some other fixes with this PTS update. The resistances for siege weapons are now all working properly. The Elysium spawn tube now properly decays. And they said the IPC glaive will also fire its burst faster now than it was before. There are still some known bugs, though. The welding tool and deconstructor tool continue to overlap if bought in the same life. And projectiles from the IPC glaive targeting device are not showing up. Those are two things that they are still currently working on to fix. So, again, small update, but three big things were added to this one. I've seen videos out there of the flail in effect currently, and it does look interesting. And I'd like to see it pushed out further and brought into the game itself, along with the orbital strikes. The orbital strike changes that we got recently as well. But with that, let's move off of game updates and on to other topics within Planetside 2. So about a year ago, we had a straw poll pop up asking what the biggest issue in Planetside 2 is currently. And I recall covering that on a show. I covered it way back on episode 89, January 22nd, 2017. So it's been over a year. And the questions asked then, and it was asked by Wrel, you want to know what people feel the biggest issue in Planetside 2 currently is. And the choices that were given are the same ones that were given this time around. So it's asking the question a second time. So gameplay balance, imbalanced fights or zerging, platoon squad incentive, lack of outfit progression, lack of competitive scoring, or the underdeveloped construction system. And when we looked at that over a year ago, the number one thing was imbalanced fights and zerging, and it was at 51%. Lack of competitive scoring was all the way down at the bottom at 7%. The question was re-asked this year, imbalanced zerging is still number one. Granted, it's not 51%, it's 49%, but statistically, a 2% difference means that for all intents and purposes, they're the exact same. Gameplay balance was second, and gameplay balance was also second. Platoon and squad incentive, after that, that's the exact same. Outfit progression is the same. They're all the exact same from 1 year later, which is interesting to me because it means what has really changed from 1 year to the next. And sure, the imbalanced fights and zerging has dropped a little bit, but not enough to be statistically valid of anything, which means that zerging is still the biggest complaint within Planetside 2 itself. Now, biggest complaint of this list, that's the caveat that we'd have to take regarding this. Because again, don't forget, this list was developed by Wrel. It doesn't say anything about the Combined Arms Initiative, which a lot of people don't like. It doesn't say anything about bugs. It doesn't say anything about optimization or anything like that, because I think those things would eat away at the imbalanced fighter zerging population. But it shows that zerging is still, of the list, the biggest complaint within the game itself. So the real question is, within that year time, what did Daybreak Games really do to fight zerging within Planetside 2? And obviously, from the community standpoint, not enough. Or not much of anything. Now, I do think that we do have some changes coming soon. And again, talking about things like allowing orbital strikes to hit existing bases within the game itself is a big way for them to counter the Zergs. I just talked about some of these new construction blueprints that are coming to construction. The Flail could be an item used to counteract a Zerg. I don't know that the Pain Spire really will counteract a Zerg as much, but the Routing Spire might help to get more people in to counteract a Zerg in a particular place. Again, I do think some of the newer things being changed with construction itself are specifically designed to help fight the Zerg, but I'd like to see Daybreak Games start giving us some ideas on what other things within the game that they could be doing to fight this Zerg mentality itself. Because sure, it's all well and good to add some construction things like that to the game, but not everybody plays construction. I mean, someone like me who doesn't want to touch construction at all, I don't have a way to try and stop a Zerg itself. Whereas someone who does use construction and is able to build orbital strike machine, a flail and things like that, they could potentially help disrupt the Zerg. And maybe that's the ultimate goal of the devs, to wrap construction into the way to break up the Zerg. And if it is, they're looking to kill two birds with one stone regarding the biggest issues. But again, construction systems way down on the list of things that people feel are the biggest issues with Planetside 2. So I thought it was curious to see how this poll a little over a year later compared to the original poll, and I was sort of surprised that it was the exact same from one year to the next. I kind of thought with the platoon squad incentives and the lack of outfit progression being talked about as some of the early goals of the devs this year, that those two would move a little bit higher, or if anything, move down to the bottom of the list, because we know that they're being worked on and pushed into the game itself. But that wasn't the case. Everything stayed the exact same. So take away what you will with that. Again, to me, I see that Zerging has not been addressed and is still the number one thing people are complaining about. All right, our fourth and final topic this week is a little story of heartbreak and then redemption at the end. I don't know if any of you follow Warpaint Gamer. I follow Warpaint Gamer on YouTube, and I watch his videos when he does release them because I think he does a good job. And I like seeing his war paint. I'm not going to lie. He wears face paint on YouTube. When you get a little gimmick like that, much like my silly hue lights being able to change on Twitch, it catches my attention. So recently, he gambled a bunch trying to get an implant. Now, the only implant that he didn't have, it was the logistics specialist implant. If you're not familiar with the logistics specialist implant, it allows your squad mates to spawn into any vehicle that you're in as long as you have an open seat. So it works well for like a flash. It works well if you're in a harasser. You're able to allow squad members to spawn into those, and it's decent. It certainly doesn't replace a Sunderer or a Valkyrie or a Galaxy, but it works for Liberators too. It allows you to get people into them. It's not a bad idea. It's not a bad niche implant to use. I can't say that I run it on the majority of my loadouts. As I was telling one of my viewers on Twitch the other night, and here's a direct shout out to you, Johnny Union 41. Thanks for being a loyal listener and a Twitch viewer. I was telling him that the main loadout I go with on the majority of my characters is cat-like battle hardened. So I don't find a lot of use for logistics specialists, but I can see where there would be some use, but not to the point of Warpaint Gamer. And many people are calling him a whale, and everybody knows that Planetside 2 does need whales to keep it going. But in cases like this, it hurts me to watch a video like this. So basically, his one attempt in this video, he was also describing the new St. Patrick's Day stuff that dropped within the game itself. So it was this video wasn't just him going through heartbreak, but he decided to spend real world cash to try and get this last implant that he didn't have. So he popped over into the ISO4 recycler, and he had, I forget how much Daybreak cash did he have on him. Let me double check. Looks like 13,644 Daybreak cash. So that's $136 in Daybreak cash that he had on his account. So even before he was getting this, he spent $136. He probably has membership too, if I had to guess. So, I mean, potentially he's getting an extra $500 a month for being a member. But let's just say that he spent, over $130 on the game to begin with. And so he spent a total of 8,900 Daybreak cash, and using the ISO4 recycler bought 100 packs in the ISO recycler to attempt to get this logistics specialist implant. And wouldn't you know, he didn't get it. He got a couple carapace, he got a bunch of the other special ones, but he did not get logistics specialist. So he basically just spent $89 right there and did not get what he wanted. He didn't give up though. He spent another 4,717 Daybreak cash, so another $47.17 to get another 53 packs. So if you're keeping track, he spent $136.17 at this point to attempt to get one implant. And wouldn't you know, he doesn't get it again. And at this point, you can just see the despair in his eyes. And he's holding his head, and it's cringeworthy video. So he realizes at this point that he can break down his duplicates. He had 153. So he got a little over 21,000 ISO4 as a result of that, and says that now he can go back in and buy some more packs using ISO4. But at this point, he says on his YouTube video that he has spent over $300 trying to get this one implant. And I couldn't believe it. I can't imagine spending $300 on a game just to try and get one implant, which is such a small niche use within the game itself. Maybe he's a completionist because, again, this is the only one he didn't have. But either way, $300 is it's mind-numbing that someone would spend that much on a game just to try and get one implant. And sorry, Warpaint Gamer, if I'm saying this, but there's much better ways that you could spend that much money. Well, regardless, he spent 21,000 ISO4, got another 42 packs. So if you're keeping track, he's gotten a total of 195 packs via the ISO4 recycler. He opens them all and doesn't get it again. So now the poor guy, I thought he was going to cry on stream. He goes back in, breaks down his duplicates. He had 42 duplicates, gets another 4,000 ISO4, and then goes back in and gets another 8 packs for another 4,000 ISO4. So for a total of 203 ISO4 packs, and thank God he finally got it. It was, like I said, this is some of the most cringe-worthy video I have ever posted, but I was so happy at the end when he got it. I'll include a link to this. It starts at the 7-minute, 52-second point within his YouTube video, but if you want to see the absolute dejected sadness that he portrays in this, and then ultimately the God praising at the end that he has for finally getting it, it's definitely worth a watch. So, Warpaint Gamer, congratulations on finally getting the last implant that you needed. I could not have spent $300 trying to get one implant, but thankfully there are players like you in Planetside 2 being a whale and dropping money on Daybreak games like this.
Housekeeping. Housekeeping.
Come back later, please.
Housekeeping.
Not now.
Housekeeping.
Go away.
I coming anyway?
So for housekeeping, I got nothing to report. No phone calls, no emails this week. But again, that's going to be it for this week's show. So how can you get in touch with me or the show itself? As always, start at my website, www.instantactionpodcast.com. Email me, instantactionshow@gmail.com. call me, leave me a voicemail, 347-4VM4PS2, or that's 347-486-4772. You can follow the show on Twitter. It's at InstAct Podcast, INSTACT Podcast, or my personal Twitter is at The Derringer. So in closing, if you've enjoyed the show, please leave me a review on your podcast listening avenue of choice, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or anywhere else. Also, feel free to tell your friends and outfit mates about the show. And finally, thanks for listening, and keep spamming that Join Combat, formerly known as Instant Action button.
Get your arms combined.